If you're not aware about all the work that PhotoWings does for photographic community, I urge you to check out their website. Anyway, today we have with us Rehab Eldalil, in her own words, Egyptian photographer of Bedouin origin. And welcome, Rehab.
Thank you, Ziyah.
Rehab is joining us from Cairo, Egypt, and we're going to talk about, I think, very special body work. And the work had quite a year. So first of all, the project, the photographic part of the project won one of the awards at this year's World Press Photo, which is massive. Congratulations. And
Thank
it
you.
is also a recipient of FotoEvidence W Award, which is partially also supported by VII Foundation. And finally, the title of the book is The Longing of the Stranger Whose Path Has Been Broken, which is beautiful, beautiful title. Before we dive into that, I'm going to share here, because the book is still hasn't been shipped, but it's about to be shipped.
It's still in printing.
So we're just going to share a simulation of what it is that you will get once you pre-order the book, which you can do if you look at this link here that I shared. This is where you can pre-order the book. And I see, and we're going to start, I would like to a little bit start from the back of the book, if that's possible, with who did what, because I just noticed that we have Tanya Habjouqa here.
Yes, Tanya, the amazing photo editor of the book.
A very dear friend and also photo editor of the book. So Tanya, I assume you're still with us. So we're going to drag you into this conversation at some point, if that's okay with you, since you edited the book. And again, for everyone, I guess by now there's hardly anyone who doesn't know what kind of books FotoEvidence does. But in case you don't know, make sure to check it out, because usually it is an amazing selection of books. And I'd like to mention a few other things before I hand over finally to Rehab. Important part in this project was also played by the Arab Fund for Arts and Culture. So make sure again to check that activity, that program that has been going on now, I think for 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. And
I think 8.
8 years, even better.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And Tanya Habjouqa is also
9.
9. There you go. And Tanya is obviously integral part to that. So if anyone has any questions about that, I'm sure we're going to convince Tanya to answer it. And the project, or actually the book, if I'm not mistaken, also received Albert Camus Award. Is that correct?
Yep.
So,
yes, correct.
I think this was a lengthy introduction. For everyone, just very few housekeeping rules. If you have, and I do hope you have any questions for Rehab or for Tanya, since she's here, and maybe even Svetlana will join us, who is the publisher of the book. So if you have questions for any of that people, make sure to just post a question in Q&A box, which you have in your Zoom, and I'll relay the message to whoever needs to answer the question. So anyway, Rehab, thank you very much. And
thank you.
Again, lengthy introduction. Let me just go full screen. And why did you do this project?
Wow, that's a you went in with a big question now.
Well,
Well,
that's
thank
why
you for that,
that's
for
what
the
that's what
introduction,
that's
first
what
of all.
I think that's what's important. That's what people buy in. When I mean
Oh,
buy in, not necessarily financially, but everyone is interested in why. So
yeah.
while we talk, I'm going to go through PDF, by the way. And if you want me to
Yeah,
stop
sure.
somewhere or go back to a certain page, make sure, just let me know. So yes, so why?
Sounds good. Why? Okay. Well, well, the actually the project I started it around 10 years ago. And during that time, I was trying to understand what it means to be Bedou because at that time, I recently discovered that I had Bedouin ancestry. And that was after I connected with the Bedouin community and the Sinai land on so many levels because as a young girl, I've always traveled to Sinai. I've always had this connection with the community because I was taught by my father, who was a war veteran who fought during the occupation and the retrieval of Sinai, how important this land is and how important the community who has been protecting it for hundreds of years are. So I already had this very profound connection with the community. And to my surprise, I discovered that I also have this flood connection as well. My last name, Eldalil, is translated to the word guide. So I always wondered, like, what kind of guides were we? Because usually Arabic families, they get their last names based on the occupation of the family. So I was sitting, that was like 10 years ago, I was sitting with a tribe elder and he was very curious about my last name and explained that the Dalil family left Sinai around 4 generations ago and went to another city. And that city is where my father was born. So that sort of was a huge bomb, to me. And it gave me the opportunity to speak with my father and try to understand more about our family history and the trauma behind it. So I started the project to try to understand what it means to be Bedou, try to create this connection, sort of reroute myself within the Sinai community, the Bedouin community, and the Sinai land. And by time the story sort of developed, it became not just about me trying to look for where I belong. It became more about the community and the community stories and celebrating the community and celebrating the indigenous experience at large. And then it became more about questioning what it means to belong, and our universal quest to search for where we belong and the meaning of belonging and the notion of belonging, which I personally think is defined through the interconnectedness between people and land. And when we are disconnected from our land, whether by choice or by force, we start to wonder where we belong because there's this disconnection happened and there's distance that happened to a huge part of our identity. So, the book went through a lot of journeys in order to reach its, I don't want to say the final point, but its current conclusive chapter. And yeah, and that was the main drive behind doing it.
So can we just, before we go into the picture, I'm just curious about this part of the family history. How come it took so long, if I understand well, for you to figure out your your origins, if you like? I mean, is that
Yeah.
part of the integration and assimilation into broader Egyptian/Arab society, or I'm just curious.
Well,
If it's too personal, you don't have to answer. I'm just
no,
curious.
no, it's fine. I think I mentioned it in the book already. It's a complex answer. I mean, having a traumatic family, family background and family history. My family from my father's side come from both Bedouin and Palestinian backgrounds. Both backgrounds very traumatic, and so my father, who had the role of, giving or passing over stories of our history. He's a military man and very, very tough, and never gave me the opportunity to, speak with him, open up about our family history. And the only uncle that was really open about, our history passed away. So so it just took me a long time to try to find a piece of a puzzle, and that was the tribe elders' answer to me. And that piece of the puzzle gave me a key to, to speak with my father and encourage him to open up.
My father is in the military, well, was in the military, so I can relate. I'm gonna actually, I'd like to ask, we already have some questions, but we'll dive into that. But I just want to mention something that I guess both you and Tanya could answer. I've really loved the distance that you have between you and your subjects. I think that's really that's for me always refreshing and always important. And I think you took it a notch further, and I think people will see that in later on even more. So I'm just curious. I'm trying to phrase the question. How much, and this might be a tricky one, how much of this distance that we see between you and your subjects in the book is sort of result of editing process, and how much is just your way of seeing and contextualizing people in this amazing moonlight, well, Mars-like landscape? And why do you have such a distance between you and your characters rather than subjects?
This is actually a very good question, especially that you've mentioned Tanya, because as I mentioned, the project has been going on for 10 years. And the first 7 years, I struggled with distance. I struggled to get my right to narrate. And so there was a lot of distance between myself and the community members who were photographed. Even though, on the personal level, we're very much connected. They're not anymore subjects, they're part of the project. But I had this internal struggle to try to get closer and try to create more intimate images that does not interrupt their, personal life. And then I met Tanya. So Tanya has been with me throughout that tipping point, that like extreme change in the project. She gave me so much power and encouragement to challenge myself and to break the distance, So you would see in the book, there is this sort of movement from a distance between myself and the community, and then a closeness. And that is where Tanya entered. Tanya and her magic came in. So she is not just the photo editor of the project, she is my mentor. She has been my supporter throughout the change and elevation of the project, and she gave me a lot of very tough questions for me to answer, and to try to defeat or to get over the hurdle, the internal hurdle that I had, and the struggle that I had with having this right to narrate, and understanding why exactly do I want to get closer to the community, visually speaking, and the drive behind it, which is to try to create a different narrative of who this community is. And in order to do this, I need to get close. And it's not about intervening their privacy. It's more about collaborating with them in order to tell this different story, and by the end of the day, the project became an alternative archive of this community, because it became this way for the community to tell their own story. And it wouldn't become that way if it wasn't for challenging, this distance and trying to get more closer. And that I give 100% credit to Tanya Habjouqa's magic, the queen. And I would love for her to also talk and share her thoughts about this.
Well, before then, Tanya, this is, well, I guess the same question sort of applies to you if you want to chip in before we move to this particular image. Are you still with us?
Ziyah, you never thought you were going to unmute me, did you?
That's unfair. So yeah. So yes, can you chime in with within the context? Well, you can speak on many different counts because you've been with this project since its beginning, but I'm just wondering if you can sort of explain a little bit better, because we don't have time to explain the whole genesis of your relationship with the project, but at least the editing part of it.
So can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So it was a gift because I met Rehab in the ISSP, the Latvia program. And, for those who don't know about those workshops, they are brief, intense, and magical. And when she came, it was a different project. I mean, in a sense, some of it was even rendered NGO photography. But there was a sense that you could just sense the poetic. And when I would look at the poetic images, there was clearly a block. And I kept pushing and pushing, why? And then it became, despite the fact that Rehab is an example, I think this is work that really challenges what we take in documentary. She gives. I mean, she worked with the community to build a medical clinic. So knowing everything, as I question, what's your reticence? Why the distance? And why, when you are close, is it such a fleeting, reductive image? Why, when this is clearly not what you want to say? And there was a guilt where she didn't feel she had the right. And it was, and I'm trying to remember why the guilt was so deeply embedded. I mean, I'd have to turn that back to her. But once she started to sort of to question her intent and her motivation, and that's what I think all of us need to do when we're working. Once you have a real honest answer for that, it transforms. And so even when there is distance, whether it's the sky or someone within the landscape, it's intentional distance. It's a poetic reflection on man and land. But then the intimacy, I mean, you've seen, Ziyah, we've all had those assignments where we, oh, a Bedouin woman, you're not supposed to photograph her. So make sure you get any image that you can, even if she's making bread and she looks reluctant, grab the image. Well, it's just so disrespectful. And why? And here she is working beautifully and challenging that approach. And then it's magic. And in a place that had their archives stolen, for geopolitical reasons and others that are too vast to go into here, I think this project of Rehab, what she has done, is a game changer. And I hope others in our region and beyond learn from it.
Thank you, Tanya. So I wanted to dive into something that people still couldn't see because they still didn't see the book. But let me go at the beginning because I think there's a better example. Well, there's a few things, but I'm very curious. In book it sort of explains it at the very end, but I'm very interested in this embroidery, because this makes this, by the way, for people who still haven't seen the book, it's kind of it's actually a multimedia book, because at some point you also have a QR code which I listen to that connects you to audio streams with sounds, poetry read by people, by the protagonists of the book, the sounds of the place, and so on and so forth. And obviously it has photographs, but it also has this embroidery. So I'm just I just want to know more about it. I mean, why embroidery, and why this kind of, and I would, while you edit why embroidery, I would also like to know exactly how this particular has been done. Like what was the process, like the physical process of it. So first of all, why this? Why embroidery?
So as I was developing the project, I was involving the community in the process itself, like how they would like to be photographed and why, and so on. But then by time I wanted to show this collaboration visually. And the idea came when I was sitting down with one of the female tribe elders, Habjouqa, and I asked her like how she would like to be photographed and so on, and she described this almond garden that she wanted to be photographed in, but she doesn't want to because she was afraid of how her image would be
used. Can you just tell me which picture, which page is that, if you have it, just so we can get to it?
Oh, actually, you just missed it.
This one?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Can you, the front, can you go to the front one? Yeah, awesome. So she did not want it to get photographed. She was afraid of how her image would be used later. And even though she knows me, she doesn't know where I'm gonna be putting the photograph and how people are gonna see it. Are they gonna see it with context and so on? So she suggested that I draw her instead. And I'm not a good drawer. So I was like, I cannot draw. Can you draw? And she was like, no, I embroider. And that's where the idea came, because embroidery is very traditional Bedouin medium. Many of the women know how to embroider, and they embroider things in their home, but also they sell items of embroidery to tourists and so on. So that ignited the idea of creating this collaboration, visual collaboration with the female Bedouin community members, where I would take photographs of them, print it on fabric and give it back to them, and they would embroider on their images. So they have full control over what to show and what to hide, and have this visual commentary and power over their own, own images, And by time the women started to choose also images of sometimes their families, their neighbors, their favorite, neighborhood and so on, in order to embroider. So that created a series of embroidered photographs that are within the book. And when you get the physical book, you would see that the embroidery is printed on a special type of paper, textured paper, in order to try to mimic a little bit the embroidery texture. And you'd also enjoy the back of the embroidered piece as well, in order to really immerse yourself in how each woman embroidered her photograph. And you would start to notice the difference in personality. Each woman embroiders in a different way, especially in the different ages. The older women, they're very intricate. The embroidery that they make is very tight. The younger women, they're more hasty, so their embroidery is very wide. They want to finish really quickly. So you start to recognize the different women as you look at the embroidery front and back.
I get it. Perfect. Brilliant. So these are, like, what's the size? I'm just imagining, because I imagine you have, or you will have, an accompanying exhibition for this. So I'm just wondering, how big are these art pieces?
Well, the original embroidered pieces, they're not super big. So the biggest one is around an A4. So that's the biggest one. And then there's a lot of the pieces, they're actually a bit smaller. So around 10 by 15. I think 10 by 15 is the smallest. No, I think 6 by 8 is the smallest size. So it ranges. Right now, the original embroidered pieces are being exhibited in Switzerland, in Chur, as part of an embroidery exhibition. And it's running until mid-November.
So did I understand correctly that at some point during the project, you actually moved to this area of Sinai, correct?
Yeah. For the past 10 years, I was based between Sinai and Cairo. I just recently settled more in Cairo, but hopefully I would return back. I'm in Sinai, actually. I'm in Dahab, but not, in my house.
Right. And I'm just curious. I guess you have shown this PDF to the protagonists. I'm just wondering what is there. I guess it's going to be different once they see the actual object, but I'm just curious about the reactions to PDF.
A lot of them got really excited that their images made the cut. Because I mean, I had a huge archive of work. So many people being part of the project. Some did not make the cut, but I made sure that everyone was acknowledged in the back of the book. But the general reaction is sometimes people get surprised that their images from 8 years ago is featured here, Or, you know, the Suleiman, for example, he is the poet that you would see his handwriting everywhere, and you'd also see a QR code that you could listen to him reciting his poetry. He was very pleasantly surprised to see all of his poetry pieces being put in the book. He always wanted that. So that was a huge thing for me to know that, you know, it's something that he really wanted. So at the moment, people are just excited to touch the book finally.
Yes.
So I'm just excited to give it to them.
And a third element that I find very interesting, especially because we are currently doing something that has to do with plans. So there's
nice.
okay, very different, but occasionally through the book we see we see this, basically a photo and explanation of certain plants and their uses. So I'm just wondering why.
Okay, so this was a collaboration with the older members of the community, men and women. I would, in general, I would go off and have these, you know, conversations with the community to ask them what it means to belong. For the older members of the community, especially those who lived during the occupation, for them, the answer is the land. The land is the meaning of belonging for them. So when I asked them how they would like to collaborate, visually collaborate in the project, they just keep mentioning the land. So what we did is that we did this collaboration to create an archive of the native plants in Sinai, specifically south of Sinai in St. Catherine's. So the community member would forage the plants, and with their handwriting, which you could see at the bottom right here, they would write down its medicinal or personal use. And so we collected around 30 plus plants and created this handheld field guide. I have it here. It's a field guide of the native plants in Sinai. I would photograph the foraged plant and add in the handwriting of its description and translate it in English, because that's what the younger members wanted, so that they could sell the plants to tourists, and create an archive of the plants. So when we were editing the book, we had this question: should we add this collaborative element, which, you know, became a project of its own, or not? And when we thought about the book as this archive, as this alternative archive of the Bedouin heritage, woven by the community themselves, it felt very important to add the plants. It felt very important to add some of the plants that are featured in the field guide. So it's only 6 plants featured, and they're featured in transparent paper. And what you would see special in the book is that when you flip the plant, it will go over the image before it. So sort of like an interactive way where the audience or the reader would plant, you know, the dry land and so on, and also learn a bit more about the rich heritage and the flora within Sinai.
Brilliant. So there's a question that I wanted to bring that by Katy Milani or Milani. I don't know if I'm pronouncing well.
Hi, Kathy. I know her.
She just ordered the book. And so she's asking, how important was ICP to your, other than she's obviously, Kathy's obviously congratulating you, but she's asking how important was ICP to your project?
Yeah, just to give context, I know Kathy from ICP. So I did, during the project, I went through a lot of programs. I did my master's in Falmouth University, focusing on the collaboration with the Bedouin community. And then after that, I got a 1-year certificate at ICP, the International Center of Photography. And then during that time, I also joined ADPP, the Arab Documentary Photography Program. So during ICP, I was developing the project, and what was interesting, working on ICP and ADPP in parallel, because ICP was very photography focused and ADPP was very experimental, focusing more on the multimedia and the collaboration with the community. So what was great is that I was able to balance it, because I felt while I was developing the project with the community and encouraging them to visually, contribute to the work, the photography fell a little bit behind. So during
someone froze. Is it me or it's you?
I think it's Sinai internet.
Okay.
Oh, can you hear me?
You're back. Yes, you're back.
I'm
You're
here.
Back. You're back. You're back.
Did I get cut off? Sorry.
Last sentence. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So I was just saying that during ICP, I developed more the photography aspects of the project.
Okay. Let me just, I want to put the link again for pre-ordering. And again, if anyone has any questions, make sure just to post it in the Q&A box or in the chat box. Okay. So the project is also part of your MA, right? Or is your MA, if I'm correct? Okay.
It is my MA.
Excellent. Let me just get to the end of the book and then we'll go to the beginning. Okay. Perfect. So this started as your sort of personal investigation and of your roots, and because of your need to belong somewhere, which is very, very common for photographers, and for people, everyone wants to belong somewhere. So where you are now, since this is done, in that sense of belonging and clarifying roots and so on and so forth.
Okay, that's a very reflective question. So in regards to this project, I want to say I'm right now in this conclusive chapter where I'm able to present something back to the community, after so many years, photographing and developing and asking questions. So my hope is that once I give the book to the community, I'm hoping that they would develop it further themselves. I'm hoping that, in I don't know, in maybe 10 or 20 years, I would get the book back and I'd find so many different notes, photographs, dried plants, whatever, and then, republish the book. This is my hope, and sort of create this cycle of documentation of the community and the changing aspects around it. So that's in regards to the project. In regards to my practice, I've learned so much during the development of this project, whether it's collaboration, my own, personal and visual voice, and so on, that I'm right now developing a new project. And I found that my practice is surrounded or focused around the idea of identity, So I focus about my Bedouin identity during this.
Sorry, we lost you there.
You lost
we lost
me?
for
Okay.
6 seconds.
Sorry.
So rewind back 5 seconds.
Oh, tell internet. Okay, rewinding back. So so I was saying that my practice is focused around identity. In this project, it was more about my Bedouin identity, and in my next project, which I'm currently developing, it's more about motherhood and the notion of motherhood, collaborating with fellow mothers in Egypt and also abroad. So hopefully what I've learned in regards to collaboration, I would be able to develop it further in my future projects.
Perfect. And I think to sort of bring the conversation to the end, I would like you to explain us the title. Now, whoever gets the book will understand it, but I would like to ask you to explain the title, The Longing of the Stranger Whose Path Has Been Broken.
Absolutely. It's a very long title.
It's great title. It's great title.
Thank
I love
you.
it.
It's actually translated Bedouin poetry. And going back to the story about how I met Tanya, we were in this workshop in Latvia, and I sort of tried to redo the project. That it was 7 years into the work, and I felt that, okay, I need to change everything. And the first thing that I need to change is the title. So I brought up all of the papers that I had that included poetry by the community members, and I started to highlight words and sentences that that resonated to me. And then I reached شوق الغريب اللي تقطع سبيله, which is translated to the longing of the stranger whose path has been broken. And sort of like a light bulb came out. I was like, yes, I'm the stranger, and that's why I'm unable to feel that I have the right to narrate, because no matter how much I do, how much I become part of that community, involved as a civil rights activist, living within the community, I'm still a stranger. And that's okay, because when I am at peace with the idea of me being a stranger, I think I let go of the ownership of the project, and I give more space for the community to become protagonists rather than subjects in the story. So when I saw the sentence and the poetry, it changed everything, because it gave me the right to narrate, because it made me comfortable in where I am within the community, feeling that I belong, but also making peace with the fact that I'll always be a stranger one way or another, and that's okay, because that gives me the space to respect the community's voice and invite it to be part of the narrative of the project.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I think this was really beautiful. This was really beautiful insight. I can't wait to see the book. Everyone, I copied again the link to pre-order the book. And Tanya, if you have anything to add in terms of the process.
I can't think of a more eloquent person than Rehab. I've heard her speak about this work so many times. Every time she does, I learn something new. No, you're amazing, and I can't wait to touch this book and celebrate with you.
Same here.
Habibti Tanya.
Same here.
I can't wait to show it to you guys.
It's almost
10th of
there.
October. Almost there.
It's almost there.
Yes.
Rehab, thank you very much. Tanya, thank you for jumping in. Everyone else who joined us, thank you. Those who didn't, this has been recorded and it will be available for viewing. So make sure to check our 7 Insider page once we publish the talk. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Rehab and Tanya, and see you soon. Take care.
Thank you, Ziyah. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Bye. Thank you.